Good afternoon, welcome all of you. So on behalf of SRIRAM IS, I'd like to welcome all of you for this particular session on essays. Now, when it comes to quality, when it comes to success, when it comes to some great content, SRIRAM IS is one of the well-known names in the industry. Now, when it comes to something like essay, what I have seen is a lot of students falter. They don't do well. Ideally, what they're supposed to do, they don't do. See, the reason is there's something wrong with the kind of preparation they do. And a lot of them are clueless. They don't even actually have a look at the previous year papers, which is, I guess, the best strategy. Before you start preparing, you must also have a look at the actual paper to get a fair idea what kind of questions you're likely to get. So when it comes to essays, what UPSC has been doing for the last few years is they're giving some kind of topics which I prefer to use the term abstract. So when I say abstract, what it implies is it's not something a kind of GK, GS kind of content. It's something where see, there are some great quotes, some philosophical thoughts, some sentences that carry a great idea, and we have to elaborate. And again, when you have to write 1,000-1,200 words on such kind of topics, it requires not only just great content but also creativity. So above all, what UPSC is trying to test through these essay topics is creativity. When I use the word creativity, what it implies is you cannot just create rubbish, you have to be very original. When you create something on these kind of topics, it has to be something very unique, very different, and at the same time most appropriate. So if you go outside the context of the topic, then even if you are creative, you will not be awarded marks. So before going say to the kind of things that we will be doing in today's class, first just have a look at the previous year topics, because my opinion is unless we have a great idea of what we are supposed to prepare, we might actually not do well. So just have a look. So these are the kind of topics we have been getting. Just to give you a broad idea, I have shared the 2022 paper. Forests are the best case studies for economic excellence. Poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. See, history is a series of victories won by scientific man over the romantic man. Ship is safe. The ship is in the harbor is safe, but that is not what a ship is for. The time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining, and so on. So when students prepare, very simple. I'll use the word simplistic, not simple. Simplistic means when you remove some necessary parts of something to make it simple, then we use the word simplistic. It's a negative term. Now, when we actually prepare simplistic topics, simplistic topic means something like, I'll say, okay, position of woman. No, I'll say that you must start with that. You must have great idea, because there is a relation. Let me tell you what kind of relation exists between these kind of topics and what we prepare. So I'm not saying that you should not actually have an idea of what is position of woman and so on, but then we have to understand something else. Look at this. There is this kind of pyramidal relationship. When I say pyramidal relationship, when you have something like abstract, something like that. So the thought process of this abstract lies somewhere in the socio-economic, political, and other kind of such disciplines. So the thought process, it's like, the sum and substance, the juice of this which we actually put in abstract. So, behind any of these topics, there's some great thinking. It's a kind of learning that we have in our social sciences. It's a kind of learning that we have in our ethics and morality and many other things. It's a blend of everything. So these kind of topics are like a blend of each of these things. So ideally, we must actually start with all these. And that I guess a lot of us are doing in our GS and other things. But then when we come to essays, we have to do it in a different way. In essays, yes, we need to have some kind of hardcore content, but in an essay, something else is required. So precisely for that reason, whatever is required from the perspective of essay, so we should also look at it. So for instance, you're doing something for women, position of women. There's nothing wrong. Must have a great idea. You've taken something from ancient history. You can go to the medieval India. You can also come to the modern part, or you can actually look at the position of women across the world. There's nothing wrong with that. But then hardcore content only in the form of facts and figures is not going to help you. So those are required, but have to be put in brilliant kind of thought, with some kind of originality and also some kind of good reasoning. three things are integral to a topic, and I'll be sharing an actual topic, kind of quality these you are getting. So in our classes, what we do is we generally take one of these topics and I elaborate them, and I take another kind of topic, see what we believe could be UPSC could be giving something very close to that, and we give the complete notes, and at the same time also teach students how to write, because you cannot bug up these things. But then when we talk about these kind of things, so the kind of thought process that is required and the kind of thinking, three things in an essay, never forget, three things that are integral to a good essay. One is your opinion. Your opinion is very important. See, and again, let me put it this way, each of these sentences is a kind of opinion. So that's the opinion. Again, make a difference. See, when we use the word opinion in itself is not justified. In other sense, whenever you have an opinion, as per say the kind need of these topics, you should have some great kind of reasoning, some great kind of content, facts and figures to justify it. So, and then this opinion has to be justified using two things, reasons and facts. So more marks are given for reasons that are for facts. Facts is something everybody can collect. But when it comes to good reasons, that shows our analytical skills. We put several facts together and find out something which others are not able to find. And that is what a very important part of an essay. Just before I actually take a topic, let me show you the reasoning skills. What these reasoning skills are and kind of things that you require in these essays. Some kind of brilliant thinking, some kind of unique way of looking at things which a lot of people can't look. So just to elaborate my point, so I'll just take some kind of thought process in it and explain what I mean by some great kind of things. So let's say, suppose if I want to put some kind of reasoning into it. So let's take one kind of reasoning related thing. So before I take an actual topic and elaborate it, suppose if I have a great opinion like, gender discrimination will lead to world war, or I'll say what's the role of women in terrorism. So let's say I have some kind of opinion, I have to give role of women in terrorism. Now a lot of people are likely to misinterpret it. They'll say that as if women are terrorists. No, there can be some terrorists who are women, but then when I say role of women, it could be much deeper. So could gender discrimination be a factor in terrorism? Could socioeconomic deprivation be a factor in deprivation, where gender discrimination put together with the socioeconomic deprivation could create conditions where women have a role? So let's put it this way. Let me just give, this is something to do with reasoning, and these kind of reasonings that are required, which I'll be sharing in subsequent classes as well. For instance, suppose if I have to look into this context, what I'll say, I'll look at three factors. From where of the most of the terrorists hail, there are three things common to all of them. One is, if you look at, there is a totalitarian political structure where the countries from where most of the terrorists hail, they have a totalitarian political structure. And if you look at their economic condition, there is abject poverty with just a few rich, and third factor is orthodox and closed society. Now these three factors, what I want to look at it, orthodox closed society with huge gender discrimination. Now these things together can play a huge role in creating conditions of terrorism. How? So when these kind of things are there, inevitably it will create certain factors that will promote, abet or create condition or will sow the seeds of terrorism. For instance, when there is such kind of a situation, see, there is a a patriarchal system where a woman is supposed to go and stay with the her husband after marriage, and the man is supposed to be the bread earner. So here, since women are not imparted with any kind of skills, there are just say a little bit of resources of the family, and family likes to invest more in boys than in girls. So women cannot actually fend for themselves in terms of earning. So they are supposed to be married to someone whose upper in class at least is a better bread earner, or can actually provide for the woman. Keep and provide for the women. But then, looking at the kind of economic structure, there is abject poverty with just a few people rich. So then see, the people who are supposed to be eligible in terms of earning potential are very few. When there are on one side there is this problem, the other is there is poor sex ratio. Just a few earning men, poor sex ratio. Now what kind of condition this creates? It creates a condition where, see, the since the decision maker in this case, in case of a woman where the daughter or sister should be married, is actually a male member, has to look into this male member has to look into situation where she is supposed to be married to someone who can keep for her or can provide for her. So in that, these two things, look at these two things. So just a few rich. So there are two choices now. She could be married to a man who actually is never married earlier, but then is extremely poor, lives in abject poverty, will live on roads. Marrying a lady or a girl to such a man would be like exploitation with everyone, by everyone. But then there is a second choice. She could be married as a second or the third wife or the fourth wife to a already married rich man. So now a male member who has to marry his daughter or sister has to decide between the two. So invariably the choice is, let her be married to a person who's already married, so long as the person can provide for her, because then in that case, see, she would be actually get the safety of a house, whereas marrying her to someone who's a bachelor, see, living on roads would lead to exploitation by everyone. So this creates a condition now. So look at, on one side there is poor sex ratio, very few women. On the other side, rich people can have several wives. Now look at poor men. What are the chances of poor men getting married? Now the chances are very few. Now it is in this scenario that, say, a special kind of condition is created. These people can be easily brainwashed. So because they're not likely to be married, and marriage is a biological social necessity. Deprived of that, once what Aristotle said, a man who lives outside society will be either beast or god. So, and marriage is something that actually makes you become a part and parcel of the society. Otherwise, within the society, you're outcast, live like that. And it's not that they don't want to marry, they want to. There are social and biological needs. But then, owing to these socio-economic conditions, they can't. So, it is these people who are brainwashed. If you do a little bit of research, which a lot of Western universities have done, and they have arrived at a conclusion that it is these people who are the ground workers of what we call terrorists, and these are brainwashed. If you have done a little bit of extensive research, the kind of seduction these people have, the kind of seductive ideas they are put into, that there are fairies waiting for them in heaven, and lot many things, so it is these things. Now look at it, brought some GK content, that have brought some reasoning. So of course the way I'm trying to explain, I'll not write my essay like that, because the kind of language that I use for essay is a very structured, very good language. It's put into proper ideas, direct connection among sentences. But then, there are two sides to it: writing a good essay and also making the people understand. So I don't have any doubt that the examiner will understand, but when I actually teach these things in the class, I have doubts that a lot of students will not understand, given the fact that they have not done this kind of research or these kind of studies. So precisely, when what we do in classes is, I will do provide you the notes, which I am about to do for a one great essay, but then there is another side to it. I also keep this thing in mind, that I explain it with some kind of simple language that people understand. But then I'd actually urge you not to write straight away in such kind of language. These kind of terminology is okay, what I've written on the board. But then when you have to put them in a proper sentence and use them in a good constructive idea, lot of brainstorming is to be done. You know, you cannot write something offensive, something obscene in an essay. You have to be very careful of what you write. It should not hurt the sentiments of anyone, and refrain from using, say, terms that hurt the sentiments of religious community, or see showing any kind of bias approach towards a political party. So refrain from doing these kind of things. But then, as I said, that these days we are getting these kind of topics, and given that be true, it is in this scenario that we have to be prepared. So let's go on. So I brought a topic for you, again just 2021 topics also, for those who believe that UPSC has done it only once. But if you look at it, say every year and year, with every passing year, there are topics are becoming more abstract. For instance, look at the third one. Philosophy of wantlessness is utopian while materialism is chimera. And I really doubt that a lot of aspirants would have written essays in an essay on that. But then if you can write a wonderful essay on this, I can suggest you that this topic can fetch you more marks than any other, because you know you will not be a victim of generalization. So, but then you're also likely to lose marks if you write on such kind of topic, if you do not write something sensible. But if you have such good content that you can write something of like third, then the kind of marks you will get, you'll get like say topper's mark. You know, if you look at see some kind of general topics that anybody can write, then there's a problem with those topics, that you'll also write something which is common to a lot of people what they're writing. And if it's very much similar, then you're writing something very different, and then what we call say you'll become a victim of generalization. A person checking your copy are not likely to award good marks. But at the same time, you write something original, not something quite common what everybody is writing. So even in those topics, you can get very good marks. But then these are the kind of topics where if you say write something sensible, you're likely to get the best of the marks. But as I said, let's move on. So we have to bring some topics. So again, look at it. Some other time we'll be talking about it. So these are the kind of things we are likely to do in the class. They are very close to the kind of topics that UPSC is giving. And what I've tried to do is, by bringing such kind of topics, what I'm trying to suggest is, when we're trying to cover such kind of topics, you're getting an idea to almost everything. And it's not just preparing one topic. When you actually prepare these kind of topics, you come back to what UPSC has given. You can find that in each of these topics, there is something that you can use, take from different topics. If you have that thinking process, of course, then you can actually construct an essay for the kind of topics that UPSC has given. So these kind of topics actually are kind of topics where if you've done some extensive research, you have good content, or you have got a good learning of these, you can even write the kind of topics that are on the previous year papers. You know, you can write them. So that's the purpose. And even if you get something different, these different topics if you've done, you'll be able to write. For instance, religion is the culture of faith, science is the culture of doubt, the kind of topics that UPSC has been giving. Education is a progressive discovery of our own ignorance. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. See, the world of reality has its limit, the world of imagination is boundless. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the great accomplishment. The greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude. Unless it's people-centric and people-driven, any reform is bound to face resistance and failure. So actually, the things that I've given are detailed kind of analysis with notes will be provided on these kind of topics. The measure of man is what he does with power. Dogma is sacrifice of wisdom to consistency. Real learning comes when competitive spirit has ceased, and such kind of topics. You know what we do in class. So I'll take one of them. No, see. Let's take one of the topics today. See, religion is a culture of faith, science is a culture of doubt. Let's say if we have to write something of this kind of a topic, what is the best or the first approach? You know, as you can see, I've kept the screen blank. The purpose is, this is what we do. On the next slide, you'll get the complete topic, what I have written. I've made it, say, the way it is to be written. But then here, what I'll be doing is, I'll be first helping you learn the draft. When you have to write this kind of thing, look at the some steps that you should follow. So look at steps. Our first step is what we say KWA. Key word approach. Under this, what you are supposed to do is find the key terms of the topic. Let's say it's given religion, then it's given culture of faith, then you've got science, then we've got the culture of doubt. So before you write, you must actually have some kind of working definition for each one of them. Not that you're supposed to write everything that you'll what I'm trying to suggest, but then this is how we understand the topic. This is what helps us create a draft. In the absence of such understanding, you're likely to mess up with the topic. A lot of people actually misinterpret topics. I've also seen and checked a lot of copies, and what I have found is that a lot of students have written something that is irrelevant to the topic, and this is what we call error of digression, and you're severely penalized if you do that. So one thing is, if you do this keyword approach, you define each one of them, you will understand what's the relation among them, so not likely to digress. And then there's a second step. This is step one. Then there is a second step. It is what we call steppers. STEPPERS. Here S stands for socio-cultural. T stands for technical. First E stands for economic. First P stands for political. Second P stands for philosophical, that is moral, ethical and moral. Then this P stands for point of view, that is your point of view. This thing what I call the soul of an essay. Soul of essay, because you should need to have a very good actually point. Main idea should be very great, something very different, something very unique. So this is what I call soul of the essay. And then comes R. This is what we call reasons. The better and more unique and great analytical reasons that you provide, you get marks. And this is what I prefer to call body. And finally, S stands for structure. You have to actually structure. What I mean is, there must be a relation among sentences. It's not like 10 advantages, 10 disadvantages. This is not that kind of a topic what we used to write at school level. So if you like writing like 10 advantages, 10 disadvantages, anything can be written before the other. You can write say any of these. Suppose you've got 10 advantages, you can write any one of them first, or what do you think could be better, you may forget and you can write, but not like here. Here sentences have a relation. So, and that is what gives a good structure. So what actually write in the first sentence, the second is connected to it, and the third is connected to 1 and 2, and so on. If there is what we call a flow of thought, it is structured, then it's an essay. Otherwise, it's not an essay. Those writing those 10 advantages, this 10 disadvantages is a very simplistic approach, and will falter in the kind of topics that UPSC is given. So this, and our third step. Third step is, it helps us from digression. Now this third step is, when you get such kind of a topic, to ensure that you don't digress, what you should do is, you should actually take this as somebody has given it to you. Somebody has actually come up with this opinion and you're not able to understand. So what question will you ask? The question, think if somebody comes and tells you religion is a culture of faith, science is a culture of doubt, what question will you ask? So you'll say the whole thing. How? How is religion a culture of faith, and how is science a culture of doubt? How? Explain it. So, this how, if you write anything outside this how, will be digression. This is the limit of the topic. Whatever you have to write must somehow connect to how. You can use some explanations, agreed. The more you venture outside how, the greater rubbish you are writing. So I guess you're getting some idea. No? So This is what I'd say. Now, I'll actually give you a brief draft and then actually show the whole essay. So let's look at it, what we'll do next. Now, how is religion a culture of faith? I'll say when it comes to religion, the modus operandi, the way how a religion approaches or the method that a religion adopts is faith. Look at this word faith. See, for every justification that is required, all justification lies in faith. The method of giving justification is faith. The faith is so strong that it does not want any reason. There is God. You will ask, prove it, where, how? No. There is God. Why? Because we believe it is there. God is there. So religion is like, everything is governed by faith. Everything. So, and one thing about faith is the more strong a faith is, the less the chances of doubt. Because a person who's governed by extreme faith does not even want to look at whatsoever can prove his or her faith wrong. Suppose I believe in something very strongly, then even if facts that are given to prove me wrong or prove my faith wrong, I'll prefer to overlook at them. And that is what we say, it sooner or later moves into what we call blind faith. That does not mean that everybody in the domain of religion is governed by blind faith. Not exactly. But then that is how actually the religion of the masses progresses. I'm not talking about intellectuals. Intellectuals are there even in the domain of religion. In spirituality, they may have a different reason. But then when it comes to masses, how our masses look at it? So on the contrary, science is the culture of doubt. What is the method that science uses? It is what we call empirical reasoning with experimentation. Some kind of hypothesis is brought, some kind of logical facts and figures are brought, and a kind of opinion is created. For instance, a long time back, when people were not aware, somebody said that there is a possibility that the earth revolves around the sun. So, and then you require some kind of reasons behind it. On what grounds do you say that? And then you have to give proper adequate reasons. Nobody would trust it. And then those reasons that are to be given, then further you have to come up with some experiments. Reasons aren't sufficient. You have to actually also experimentally verify it. So this creates what we call a hypothesis. And this is the test of hypothesis. So unless both steps are performed, so nothing in science is settled forever. But then when it comes to hypothesis and experimental verification is always of the part. Let me give an example what I'm trying to say. Science is governed by what I'll say inductive generalization. What I mean by inductive generalization is when instead of looking at the whole, we look at the part, and whatever we conclude from the part, we apply it on the whole. Let's take an example. Let's look at what once Newton did. Newton was I guess all are aware that this is a very famous story. He was sitting under a tree and saw an apple fall. That prompted him to give the theory of gravity. But then the theory of gravity actually is applicable to everything that has mass. But then all things that have mass, how many of these actually were tested? For instance, Newton saw an apple fall. That is just one of the total things that have mass. He might have seen some similar other things in his daily observation. But did he test it on everything, this infinity of matter. He did not. So he tested just observed part, observed part, observed a part of it. But the conclusion was about the whole. So when we have, observation or experimentation of just a part, but when we give the conclusion, we apply the conclusion to whole. This is called inductive generalization. I'll say that though it is not appropriate, it's not fully correct, because there's a possibility that even one of those things on which were not tested, the things that were not undertaken experiment, even if one of them is wrong or goes outside this, then the theory for the whole is not valid. And that is exactly what happens in science. There is a scope in science that there where we find some exceptions. There could be some exceptions to it, some exceptions. And once somebody finds these exceptions, then a change is brought. So since science follows a method of inductive generalization, so there is always a scope that there is a possibility of some exceptions that are not governed by the same conclusion that is drawn. And when conclusion is applied to those things, it will fail. So then science is ready. See, science is ready for such things. It's not that scientists overlook those things. Scientists are sensible people. If you show them some better reasoning, show them some exception, they'll accommodate and accept it and make a change of that. So one thing about inductive generalization is nothing is settled forever. Nothing is settled forever. There is always a scope of reform. Scope of reform which leads to evolution. It's not static. So, and that's what has been happening with science over the years. But if there is a scope of reform, and if scientists do concede that there is inductive generalization, which is a slightly erroneous process, a better way would be I test everything. For instance, if I say there are 500 students in my class, so the best way to test is count each student. So if I have counted every student, then to say 500 students are present in the class is valid. But if I just look at some students and I have not seen, I have not counted, the class seems to be full, and I say there are 500 students in the class, even if one student is missing, then my statement 500 students are present in the class is wrong. So, but then there's also a problem that we live in a world full of infinities. How can we actually test everything? Precisely for that, it's not that simple as in the case of a class that you have to count 500. There is infinity. So science is limited by its capacity to experiment. Precisely for this reason, science follows inductive generalization. But then in the process of inductive generalization, there is always a scope of some error. So, and this actually scientists concede, and they're ready to alter or change whenever it is brought. But if there is this element that there is a change possible, there can be something that can actually prove something wrong, then it creates doubt. But then if you look at religion, faith does not require reason, faith does not require any kind of experimental verification. Faith is just faith. I believe because I believe, and it's a part of my upbringing. It's not to say that there's wrong in something that we believe. Even if I don't believe in anything, that is also a belief. So without belief, we cannot live in this world. But then what kind of belief we have? We have a belief that actually agrees to concede the element of error, or concede that we might commit errors. Then that's the belief of reasoning, which actually is present in science but not in religion. Religion does not admit, despite the fact that there have been reforms in religion, but they have not been easy. And again, there have been movements, there have been crusades, there have been a lot of violence. But then religion does not agree easily. No, precisely for that reason, it's just driven by faith. So here the faith is almost dogmatic. So religion creates a kind of dogmatic faith which does not wave that easily. And on the contrary, since science does concede there could be some error, it creates a culture of doubt. That is what I'll say to explain this essay. But then, this is for those who are present in the class or watching live, that I'll explain. There are more such things. But then, when you have to write, such kind of thought process should be there. But when you have to write, you have to create the brilliant sentences with interrelation. You cannot write nonsense. So that has to be very well structured. So it is precisely for this reason now, I'll show you the complete written part. Let's have a look. Now, this is what I'll say, a kind of draft that I brought for you, and I'll explain it. Just have a look. It is imperative in science to doubt. It starts with imperative means necessary. Why? Why it is imperative? It is absolutely necessary for progress in science. Why? Because that is what leads to progress in science. To have uncertainty as a fundamental part of your inner nature. That is what you say. Now, this is an opinion. Let's understand. Started with an opinion. To make progress in understanding, we must remain modest and allow that we do not know. Because that is what science does agree. Science does not like to talk about those things which cannot be tested or say by some experimental verification, cannot be actually tested through some experimental verification. So for instance, if you ask somebody in science or a scientific view about God, so science would prefer to remain silent because there's no experimental verification. No, scientists may actually have different faiths. Even scientists may be people of religion and they have their faiths, but they don't give the view of science. Science would prefer to remain silent on such things. So and to make progress in understanding, must remain modest and allow that we do not know. Nothing is certain or proved beyond all doubt. Nothing is certain. There can be a doubt everywhere. We investigate for curiosity. That is, the modus operandi of science. See, that we create when we have this kind of thing. See, curiosity. We actually, investigate for curiosity because it is unknown. Not because we know the answer, because science starts with the outset, we don't know the answer. So if we don't know the answer, then there is a curiosity to find out. There are two ways. You don't know, you come up with some kind of belief. For instance, why is a tiger fierce? So you may actually go and do some kind of studies in biological sciences and how the tiger evolved and what kind of carnivorous things that are present in a tiger, carnivorous flesh-eating things, what instinct, why it was created. That would be a scientific study. The other way is that, God created it like that. There are two ways of looking at it. So, and as we develop more information in sciences, it is not that we are finding out the truth, but that we are finding out that this or that is more or less likely. Again, I'd like to actually come up with something out here. Truth is a very abused word. Truth is very different from what people use in common language. It's not everything that we use in common language is truth. And a lot of people actually misinterpret truth to mean fact. Fact is a different thing, truth is a different thing. And again, there would be a view that if it is a fact, can it be wrong? So the answer is yes, it can be. But if it is truth, it cannot be wrong. So let's understand what a fact is and what a truth is. Because science would actually create facts. Truth is still a bigger thing. Let's understand. As per logical method or logical sciences, fact is something that is verifiable. Whatsoever we can verify is fact. When I say verify, what does it mean? It means that there exists a method or process which is universally accepted without any doubt. and by applying that method, we can test the validity of a claim or statement. For instance, suppose if we are present in a big classroom and I come up and say that the length of the classroom is like say 30 feet. Suppose if I say that, then is there a method to verify it? Yes, we'll use say the tools of measurement. We'll try to measure it. We'll use the measuring tape and similar kind of things to measure it. So once we've measured it, we'll say, since it is measurable, since there is a universally accepted method of measurement, we'll say it's a fact. Now, if I say that the length of the room is 200 feet, which it ideally not possible, and we'll measure and prove it wrong, that it can't be 200 feet, even then it is a fact, but an invalid fact, So, as per logic, fact is anything that is verifiable. And verifiable in itself means existence of a universally accepted method. So, for instance, long time ago, people living on earth in ancient ages believed that earth is flat, and they had a method of say universal acceptance which they used to verify. You would say, see as far as you can, can't you see that it's flat? So everybody could see as far as they could, it appeared to be flat. But the dimension of earth is larger than our capacity to see. They could see just a part of it, not the whole. If they could have been able to see the whole, they would have realized it's not flat. But since there was a limited capacity to visualize, then they arrived at a conclusion. So it was a fact of that time that the earth is flat. But was it correct? No. So, and it could not stand the test of time. Finally, it was proven wrong. So this is exactly what happens with facts. Not that every fact is wrong. A fact is considered to be correct till we can find an exception or error in it. So we should accept it. That's what the logic, experimental verification for the sake of method and process, we agree, But then we also agree that it could be wrong. But on the contrary, see, if earth was not flat, then this was not true. It was not the truth. Truth was something else. So truth is different, So truth is something, what was there, what is there, what will be there. It will not change. It's constant. What changes is our opinion towards the truth by a better understanding and knowledge, not the truth itself. Truth does not require verification. We require verification to find out whether what we believe is true or not. So what changes is then our opinion, not truth. Now, if you understand this line, you will understand it better. We investigate for curiosity because it is unknown, not because we know the answer. And as we develop more information in the sciences, it is not that we are finding out the truth. Only said that that's why we're not finding out the truth. But what we are finding out is that this or that is more or less likely. More or less likely. Earth is more likely to be spheroid. Wrong. Not it is wrong. Why? There are infinite dimensions and our perceptive capacity is limited to 3 dimensions. So when we apply the perceptive capacity of 3 dimensions, the earth appears to be round, spheroid. There are infinite dimensions and we cannot even perceive them. Our senses are limited. So is it really? So we don't know. It's more likely to be spheroid, and that is what we govern by sciences. The statement of science are not what it is true and what it is not true, but statement is what is known to different degrees of certainty. Different degrees of certainty. We are more certain about it. Not that it is definitely true. That is what science is. 2 plus 2 is more likely to be 4. You know why? Because even agreeing what is 2 is a kind of universal belief. We all agree. And to prove a digit is 2 in itself requires some kind of belief. So, and we know that even with moral values granted, human beings are very weak. Even if, humans have moral values, they actually, moral values are bred in them since childhood, but they are weak. They must be reminded of the moral values in order that they may be able to follow their consciences. And otherwise, how would they actually be governed? It is not simply a matter of having a right conscience. It is also a matter of maintaining strength of what you know. Look at this, maintaining of strength what you know is right. And it is necessary that religion gives strength and comfort, that inspiration to follow these moral views. So, I'm not trying to say that any of them is right or wrong. The essay is not asking which of them is better, which of them is right. Just try to explain how. So, there's also an importance of religion. See, after all, some kind of faith is required, and in this faith is the domain of religion. It does create, and that also is necessary for good social life, and religion gives this inspiration. So, this is the inspirational aspect of religion. It gives inspiration not only for moral conduct, it gives inspiration for the arts and for all kinds of thoughts and actions as well. It does. So, but then this inspiration is necessary. It also has some very vital aspect without which a social life is more likely to be distorted. But is it completely right? Is it in every aspect tested? Right in the sense that it is necessary. Metaphysics, which is an aspect of religion. Just as physics deals with laws that govern the physical world, such as those of gravity, the property of waves, metaphysics describe what is beyond physics. The nature or origin of reality itself, the immortal soul, the existence of supreme being. The opinions about these metaphysical topics vary widely, since what's being discussed can't be observed or measured. That is why science is silent here, because it can't be measured. For or even truly known to exist, we don't know. So most metaphysical questions are still as far from a final answer as they were when Plato and Aristotle were asking them. But then a part of every religion is metaphysics. That is what I'll say. A part of every religion is metaphysics, which I have already explained, that it is something like what is beyond physics, reality itself, immortal soul, and so on. But there is other part of religion, which is what we call myths, stories, fairy tales. These, even they have some value. They try to instruct us with some kind of accepted morality or ethics of the time. Yeah, they do. But then that's a different thing. The religion has two aspects. One is this, let me put it this way. We can see two in Hinduism. Let's say Gita. Gita is this, what I'll say, these kind of things. We're talking about reality and all that. And then there are myths, like not exactly myths, or maybe kind of stories which actually inculcate some kind of good life and tell us how what an ideal life be. Something like Ramayana, Mahabharata, or something of that. So these are not myths, but these are kind of stories which have great value and lesson to us. I'm not saying they are myths, nor am I saying they are not myths either. They are or not, that's like beyond my capacity to judge. So because I'll be honest, I don't know, but I have been governed by some kind of faith to believe in them. Why? Because believing in them give me some inherent strength. It gives me some kind of virtue, some kind of conscience. It creates some kind of sentiments in me which make me live the way I should live or conduct myself in a, say, society, an ideal kind of living. That's where I'd not like to question my faith. Not that my one aspect of science does actually challenge, but then at certain degree that faith is also necessary. So we need to have a good blend of both. So that is what an aspect of science is. I guess you're getting some doubt. It is clear that this dogmatic attitude which makes us stick to our first impression, but then if we stick, it creates a dogmatic attitude. What do we mean by dogmatic attitude? The word dogmatic is very easy to understand. You've seen a tail of a dog. It doesn't matter how much you try to make it straight, it remains curved. It's never straight. So it's like, it does not matter how much you try to change. It does not matter what facts or figures you preserve. Some people are so rigid in their belief that they stick to what they believe. That is what we call dogmatic. So, which makes us stick to our first impression, is indicative of a strong belief. This is what we call strong belief. And this is an aspect of religion. While a critical attitude which is ready to modify its tenets, which admits doubt and demands test, is indicated of a weaker belief. So this critical attitude is related to what we call science, because science is ready to criticize itself. Religion does not criticize itself. Science does. So if science itself is, one scientist would find some errors in the works of another scientist, and so long as it can be proven, the other scientist will also accept. So that is the kind of thing that is there in religion, because it's governed by this critical attitude, and that's what actually leads to growth and evolution. It is with this what we make progress and development, and it is with this belief that today we've been able to land on moon and darker side of the moon. So that's what the aspect of science is. So both have their importance, and it is precisely here we must understand. For the dogmatic attitude is clearly related to tendency. Look at it. What is dogmatic attitude? Related to tendency to verify our laws and schemata by seeking to apply them and to confirm them. It only tries to do what? Verify. That's correct. Even to the point of neglecting refutations, not accept refutations. If you try to point out some flaw, you will not accept it. It does not matter how strong the flaw could be, but will not accept. Will not bring a reason to it. Will not like to. Why? Because that's an aspect of faith. So I'm not trying to say that it is always right, nor am I trying to say it's always wrong. I'm just trying to say it has its importance. In some aspects, such kind of faith is necessary, because without such a faith, I guess life to be governed by the kind of right approach towards life, or the higher degrees and values that should be present in us, will be missing. Because only once we have faith, those who are committed to their ideas, those who want to live the life of honesty, those who want to live the life of virtue, those who want to live the life of, some kind of sincerity, must have some kind of faith in it. And invariably, most of the times, it is religion that actually inculcates this kind of faith. No, I'm not trying to say that other things do not, but religion has played a very vital role. So that is what then. So what this dogmatic would do, dogmatic attitude will do, where it will not actually try to take refutations. It will not agree with any kind of criticism or refutation. Whereas the critical attitude is one of readiness to change them. On the contrary, critical attitude, which is what science is, that ready to change them, to test them, to refute them, to falsify them, if possible. Yes, that is what with science is. This suggests that we may identify the critical attitude with the scientific attitude, and the dogmatic attitude with the one which we have described as pseudoscientific. Pseudoscientific, something that appears to be science, is not, and to a certain degree was also came before science. It further suggests that genetically speaking, pseudoscientific attitude is more primitive than and prior to the scientific attitude. We first governed by religion. I'd actually like to think about the ancient ages and like to imagine when settled life started. Could a settled life have started without some kind of moral view, beliefs, faith, and a reason and conviction to follow certain rules? Without that, society would not have evolved. So religion played its part, you know. So and that is why it is pre-scientific attitude. So and this primitivity or priority also has its logical aspect, you know. And like now let's look at the relation between the two. For the critical attitude is not so much opposed to the dogmatic attitude. So religion is not against science as superimposed on it, but imposed on it. Criticism must be directed against existing and influential beliefs in the need of critical revision. In other words, dogmatic beliefs. For instance, we very dogmatically held that earth doesn't revolve around the sun, it's the sun that revolves around that, because if there be one God, God would be very much like the shape that humans have, because humans are the most, the best of all animal world. They are the best shape that an animal world can have. So if there be God, God would be like humans, and if that be true, then earth is where, see, everything should be. So the sun should then actually go around earth, not the earth. So such kind of views were there in religion. They might have their own importance when they were there, but then, you know, this is what science used, tested it. So there are certain things in science which there are certain things in religion which science has used as raw material, which science has tested and sometimes proven them to be false as well, you know. And good thing has been that which has at times brought reforms in religions, and there have been the kind of conviction that people should have towards work, kind of karma theory is also an aspect of religion without which scientists cannot move on, you know. A critical attitude needs for its raw material, as it were, theories or beliefs which were held more or less dogmatically. So now I have not completed it, you know. This is what I do in the class. Beyond this, I'll urge students to write their own paragraphs, because, you know, I've given you some good raw material, I've tried to explain, I've given you some kind of thought process, something to think, ponder over. Beyond this is your duty. You carefully reflect at what I have given. So, and that does not mean that I do not give full written essays. Yes, I do. But then I believe that, are we really sure this essay will come? This should be like taken as more or less some kind of say evoking of thought process. You know, this is what the kind of thought process I should inculcate in you. And there must also be some task that should be given to every student to write beyond it. Now, if the students can write, say, like 200 to 300, 400 words beyond it, it's like good essay, complete it, and they can take inspiration from it, you know. And then I'll also bring complete essays where I'll actually write everything and say, now again, try to modify these essays, learn something from them, try to actually write something of your own, you know. That's the ideal way of learning it, you know. There are two sides to essay preparation. One is dealing with such kind of content, you know, and again, kind of thought process that is required. This is precisely for this reason that at SRIRAM IAS we believe in delivering quality content, you know, something of this sort, you know. That does not mean that in the initial phase of classes we don't actually come with socio-economic, political, simple light things. We do, you know, but then doing it endlessly will actually lead to a kind of wrong perception on the part of students. That's what will come in exams. So in subsequent classes, when I do come, as I did something in the beginning, I was trying to explain that the role of women in terrorism was done rationally. I could use it some kind of another topic where of similar things, a few points from there. So this thought process actually has come from analysis of the socio-economic, political things and more of social sciences. I do agree. So that is necessary. That is like the building phase in the initial classes. But the final aspect of classes are like these, you know, where we try to deal with such kind of topics that are coming in UPSC these days, which a lot of people are afraid to write. So we're trying to say, you know, at SRIRAM IAS we believe, we tell students that, you know, should not be afraid of these topics. You should rather actually accept them. You should actually feel a little happy about them, because, you know, this saves you from two things. One, this does not require too much of mugging up. It's a kind of thought process. Once ignited, you can use it forever. Second, so it saves you from mugging up too many things. Second, that it sticks forever, stays forever. Such kind of things make you knowledgeable. So I'd rather say that UPSC has been on the right, in the right direction to bring these, because to borrow as a civil servant, you have to be also innovative and creative. So that's what UPSC is trying to. Yes, and at SRIRAM IAS, we've been able to produce students with brilliant marks and essays. So, and of course, I do believe that if you can write something such sensible and such kind of essays and more of such things, then your ability to get good marks is greatly enhanced. So, in subsequent classes, I'll be bringing more of such things. Till then, I'll say I'll take a leave for today. Bye for now. See you some other class. We'll continue with these. So, and you can join our classroom programs. I guess you have all the details. So, and you can meet us personally to have some kind of guidance and innovative approach to write such kind of things. So, that's it then. Bye for now. Take care. And I'm Achal Khanna on behalf of SRIRAM IAS once again saying bye for now to all of you. That's it.